The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. Hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar where we'll talk a little bit about flexible modeling. So I just have a few slides just to start off the presentation. So just a quick agenda of the webinar. So I'll do a quick introduction of boundary systems and then I have one slide on flexible modeling, and then we can jump into Creo. We'll use a few parts to demonstrate flexible modeling, and then after that we can do a Q&A session as well. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. So my name is Pierre Venter. I'm a boundary systems technical specialist. I've been using Creo and Creo manufacturing for about 8 years now. I'm also responsible for developing post processes on the manufacturing side for Creo. Then the next slide is just a few of the logos some of the customers that we serve. So I think the important bit on this slide, the capabilities that we have. So we mostly help them with product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, and then also product development. The next slide is some of the accreditations we've got. So once again, I think the important ones on this slide is the Winchell certified implementers. We're also PTC preferred service provider, and we're also PTC certified training partners. And on the next slide is just some of the solutions we offered. So I think the bulk of everything is on the PTC, but we also have some solid thinking, Iterate, and ZWCAD. The next slide is just a one slider on flexible modeling. So there's 2 points that I want to just talk to everybody or mention it, is that flexible modeling is a geometry-based set of tools. So you won't be creating geometry from scratch when you use flexible modeling. What you can do is you can manipulate what's already there. So you can copy geometry and then you can move it to a different place and so on. The next important bit is that it's not a standalone modeling system. So flexible modeling is embedded within Creo. So if you want to use this, you'll grab a Creo license first, then you will go into the flexible modeling tab, and then you will have access to all the tools that you can use to manipulate that geometry. The next slide is just the contact information. So you can contact me if you have any questions regarding the webinar or any technical questions for what that matters. If there's any sales related questions, you can direct that to sales@boundarysys.com. and I'm sure somebody there will pick that up. Okay, so I think that's it for the slides. So let's go ahead and jump into Creo and start working with some of the models. Okay, so like I mentioned, as soon as you start working with flexible modeling, you'll be in Creo, and you'll have this tab over here, flexible modeling. You can access that, and then you'll have the set of tools that you can use for manipulating this geometry. So the workflow of flexible modeling is quite easy. You'll do your selection bits first. So if you work the dashboard from left to right, that's basically your workflow. So the first thing that you'll do is you'll select some surfaces that you want to manipulate. You can search for those surfaces as well, and then you start to transform those. So this is this tab over here. So as soon as you transform that, that's when you start manipulating them. Then if you go to a little bit more to the right hand side where you get your recognitioning tools, so that's where you tell Creo, okay, so this is a pattern, this is symmetry, geometry, or rounds and chamfers. So you can look for that, identify it, and then start working with that. So there's a few changes in Creo 5 that's really neat and a lot easier to do. One of those is if you select geometry, there will be a little bit of a pop-up window, and you can select 90% of the things that you need to do within that window. So that's just reducing the mouse travel a little bit and making it a little bit easy. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do is we'll select a boss. Let me just zoom that a little bit, and so you guys can see exactly what's happening. So the first selection is a boss selection. So you'll notice just next to that window, the hole is not actually selected when I select that. Let me pick that so you can see it a little bit more, a little bit better. So the hole is not selected. If I deselect everything and I use the same method and I just go to the next icon, that will grab the hole as well. So that's just a quick and easy way of grabbing a whole lot of things in one go instead of going selecting one surface at a time. So you can also access these tools. So as soon as you select something in the dashboard, they will be active as well. So you can select cuts and a boss and bosses and rounds and chamfers as well. Okay. So that's the important thing when you start using flexible modeling, is just get the selection right, and then everything else will be a little bit easier. One of the things that we can use is the geometry search. So I'm going to look for planar surfaces. So being a little bit in the manufacturing side and CNC machining, I would like to know what planar surfaces are here. So that will determine how I machine a component, for instance. So if I search that, I can select, and that will highlight all the planar surfaces. So there's a few warning signs from a CNC guy here. So I've got a few surfaces. Let me just rotate the part a little bit and highlight that. So you'll see that particular surface, if I'll need some special machining method that I'll need to apply there. Maybe I've got a 5-axis machine or just a 3-axis machine. That will determine how I machine that particular surface. But this is just a nice way of selecting surfaces, and you can use it to verify certain surfaces. Okay, so that's the selection. So it's the same with the cuts. So if I select this surface in the middle and I select the cut option, it's going to highlight all of those. If I select cuts, it's going to look for all the geometry, and you can see it picked this chamfer, and the surface in the inside. So use cuts and bosses. Really, it will simplify your selection. You can always go hit control and deselect certain surfaces, or control and select additional surfaces if you need to. Okay, so I think that's the on this particular part, that's what I want to focus on, is the selection. So let's go on to the next one, where we will start moving geometry around. So once again, we'll start with selecting certain things that we would like to move, and then we'll apply a dragger movement or a dimension movement, or we can use constraints to move these geometry as well. Okay, so let's start with this one first. So let's take this boss at the bottom. So we'll select that, and we're going to just rotate that a little bit. And we're going to use our moving dragger for this particular action. So as soon as you select the dragger, it's going to give you like the assembly constraints. It's going to give you that dimension, or that the dragger that you can manipulate. So I can take this, I can take the arrows and I can move it. I can take the arcs and I can rotate this particular boss that I've selected. What I would like to do here is I'm going to change my origin. So I'm just going to select the datum plane in the middle of this particular component. And then as soon as I select this highlighted arc where I want to change it, if I drag that boss is going to move a certain degree. So I can type in the degrees here if I want to. You can drag it just freely. So you have the option there to do what you need to do with that particular component, or that geometry rather. So let's finish that. That was my first move that I needed to do. Then I want to change this one a little bit. So I'm going to just extend this. So I'm going to use the same selection method, and I'm going to use the dragger again. And I'm going to change my origin again, but I'm going to select a planar surface. So as soon as you select these references or these surfaces, you'll notice that some of the icons or some of the directions is grayed out. So I can only rotate that, and I can pull it in one direction. So I just want to, maybe that the hole needs to line up a little bit better or something. So I'm just going to move that 0.5. And then I need to move this component up as well. So I could just change my origin. My arrows will update as well with the selection that I've made. And now I can drag that component up or down. So I'm just going to make a small adjustment over there. We just need to lift it. Let's make it 0.5 again. So you can type in the values, and then you'll also notice that if you go to the dashboard and you activate the steps tab, that you can track the steps that you've applied to that particular geometry. So there was 2 movements to that, and if I finish this, you'll also notice that in the model tree, I only will have 1 movement for that particular geometry. So there's movement 2 and movement 1 in my model tree. Okay, so that was just using the dragger. So the next thing that I want to move is this hole over here. So I'm just going to move that, but I'm going to use my dimension method. So this is where you need to go and you need to move it a certain dimension value. So I can pick that, and then you'll need to select your references where you need to dimension it from. If we go to the dimension tab, I can select references, and then I need to pick those references from the geometry. So I can pick the hole again, which means that's going to take the center point, and then I can take a surface, and that will give me a dimension that I can change. So in this particular scenario, it's going to be a 6 dimension, and I can change that to, let's make it, I need to move that hole 7 millimeters from the side. And once again, I can add movements. If I need to move it up or down again, I can add dimensions to that. And then the last example that I want to show is where you use constraints. So let's take a design scenario where this particular hole here at the back, I need to remove that, and then we need to put a pin in there as well. So I'm just going to select the hole and hit my remove button. That will remove that hole, and now I'm going to just copy and paste the pin to where that hole was. So I'm going to select the pin, and I'm going to say move by using constraints. And I'm going to tell Creo I want to create a copy of this particular feature. So you just need to select that in the dashboard. And then you'll see under the placement tab, I need to go and select references. So in this case, you'll use it exactly the same as you would use it in the normal Creo assembly mode. So you pick your first reference. So that will be the existing geometry that I want to move. And then I'm going to select the cylindrical surface at the back. That will give me a coincident constraint. Okay. So that means that pin is now in the center of that edge that I've selected there. Yeah, so that's how you can create certain geometry within flexible modeling by using a copy feature. Yeah, so that's a fairly simple, straightforward pin. If you're working with complex geometry, you just grab them. The work method is exactly the same. So I think we can move on to the next part. And here I want to show you the mirror functionality, and then we'll just talk a little bit about how the mirror is used within flexible modeling. So once again, we go to our flexible modeling tab. We do our selection. So we're going to select the complete feature or the complete boss, and we're going to mirror that. So I'm going to mirror it over a plane over here. So that's going to move to the right hand side. And then as soon as that's done, we have a few options that we can do here. So you could see it automatically projected or extended the geometry to intersect with the part. But I don't want that at this stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the bounding edge. And that bounding edge is just going to make this geometry a little bit shorter. And as soon as you do that, you'll also have a few options. So it will find certain solutions. So if you click next on the solutions tab, that geometry will change. So that's the first one. I think the second one might be a little bit better. That's what I'm looking at. So I want that hole in the center. Let me just zoom in a little bit there for you guys so you can see. Excuse me. So that was the second solution. So I can finish this now. So I've mirrored that geometry now, but now this is still a geometry. So I can still take this, the original boss, and I can still apply a move or a rotate or anything with that, and that's not going to affect the mirror that I've created. So I can move that, and you can see the other one is not updating. So as soon as you do this, then you're working with separate geometry, where within Creo, if you use mirror features and things like that, it might be linked. You'll have references that you'll need to manage. In Creo Flexible Modeling, that's not the case. What you can do then is I can mirror this, the original part, and I can tell Creo that it should be symmetrical, and then when I move the other one will update as well. Okay. So in this particular component, I just wanted to show that you can change that. Okay, so let's go on to the next component. And another feature that I would like to show you is the substitute. So also a very nice feature that you can use to replace certain surfaces. So what we'll be doing in here is we'll take this top surface and we'll substitute that with the extrude that we've created. So that's just a surface extrude. You use your normal sketch functionality, normal extrude, and let's use the substitute to change the surface. So I'm going to start the substitute tool. So as soon as you start that, you can pick your surfaces. So I'm going to tell Creo, well, I want to take this one from the geometry, and I would like to substitute that with the extrude that I've created. And that will then substitute that surface with the extrude that I've created. So you can see the rounds and everything is still there. It respects that the additional things that's there. If you use the normal solidify within Creo to do that, you'll have to go and recreate the rounds and bits and pieces around that. Okay, so this is just a nice and quick way. You can use it with your normal Creo geometry. Doesn't have to be imported or anything like that. So just quickly jump to flexible modeling, make the changes that you need, and that's it. Your design is finished, or that section of your design at least. Okay, so if we go to the next component, I just want to show you how to handle tangencies within flexible modeling. So we've got a component here, and we're just going to offset the radius over here. So we pick the radius, and we're going to offset that with a 0.2 value. So you'll see the default way that that's created. That's not really neat. It's not respecting the adjacent surfaces or anything. So I have to tell Creo or flexible modeling to do that. So I'm going to tell it to keep existing tangencies to surfaces. You just pick the tab, and you'll notice that it changed the purple surfaces. So let's just orientate this a little bit better. So the surface that I'm highlighting now, that's the original one, and then that purple surface, that's not really what we need at this stage. We want to keep that purple surface. We want to keep that planar or parallel to the existing one. So I'm just quickly going to go one step back and keep an eye on this conditions tab. So as soon as I deactivate the keep tangency, the conditions tab is grayed out. Okay, so as soon as you activate that, you can play around with all the conditions around the geometry that you've selected. So I'm going to activate that again, and I'm going to go to my conditions, and I'm going to add a new one. So I'm going to tell it, so this surface at the back, add that surface at the back, I want that to be, well, let's go through the options. So the first one is fixed. So you can see what it will do. So it's just going to fix that in place. Okay, so not really what we want for this particular component. So we can change that to fixed normal, and you can see that's a lot better design intent for that particular change. Right, so that's how you can handle tangencies within Creo Flexible Modeling. So we can go to the next component. And we're going to start, just want to show you the remove tool again. So this is one I really use often. It's a nice tool just to clean up certain models. I use it a lot on imported things. I can use it on Creo, but not that much. It's just making a lot more sense with imported features. So the first thing that I want to do is I just want to remove this hole in the center we've got here. So you pick the surface, and in the box you can select remove, or you can go to the dashboard at the top, and that's going to remove that surface. Right, so selection again. So I can pick a surface. This time I'm going to go for cuts. So that's going to grab all the geometry in the center of that component. Now I can just hit remove, and that's done. Okay, so no extrudes, no filling up this and that, no removing rounds or anything like that. Just pick the whole cut and remove that. And the second thing I want to show you is just, let's say we've got a scenario where we want to remove geometry, but we still want to be able to see it. So you can sort of detach it from the solid geometry. So let's pick that and let's use the boss, and I'm going to say remove, but in this case I'm going to say keep removed surfaces. So under the options tab you've got a few options, one of them keep removed surfaces, and that's just going to convert that to surface geometry. So if I pick the surface over here, you can still see the green line is running through that. So it's just surfaces. You can use that now for references or any other design intent that you might need it for. Okay, so the remove tool, quite easy. Pick and just hit remove, and that will be gone. Then if we go to the rounds and chamfers, so here's a few nice tricks that you can use. One of them is just to identify rounds and chamfers. So the first thing that what I'll do is I'll just use my normal dragger, and I'm just going to drag some of this geometry around. So I pick a surface and I drag that up slightly. So just notice what happens to that chamfer. So that section, let me highlight that. That original section basically grew with the geometry that I moved. Okay, so at this stage, Creo or Flexible Modeling is not seeing that as a chamfer. It's seeing it as geometry. So if you move it, that's going to move with the movement that you apply to it. So let's cancel that. We say that's not what we want. And I'm going to tell Creo that is a chamfer. So I'm going to say recognize chamfers. And then I can select the geometry. And it's going to grab everything tangent to that. And I say OK. So that's just something quickly I've done. Now I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to grab exactly the same surface. And I'm just going to move that with the dragger. And then you can notice the difference. So now that's not moving with the geometry that I moved. Yeah, so that's just a certain way of working with chamfers and rounds. So I'm going to say that's fine. I need to do that. So let's do one for the rounds as well. So in this case, on the other side of the component, I'm going to move the geometry again. I'm just going to use my dragger, pick the surface. Then I'm going to move it up, and notice that the round is highlighted in green. So that tells me that Creo recognized that as a round. Okay, so well, that's nice. In this particular case, that's not what we want. So we're going to go the other way. I'm going to tell Creo this is not a round. So I'm going to pick my not rounds, and I'm going to select the round feature. I'm going to say OK, and then if I go to move surface again, I pick exactly the same surface, moving that with my dragger, and you'll notice that the round now stays at the bottom. So that's just a really nice way of controlling what you want to move within Creo. Okay, so that's that component. Let's move on to the next one, where we're going to work a little bit with patterns. Okay, so patterns, really a nice feature within flexible modeling and in general in Creo as well. So let's start patterning some of these geometry. I'm going to grab this little boss over here. I'm going to grab everything, and then I'm going to apply a pattern to it. So in this particular case, what I would like to do is an axis pattern. So I pick that, so you'll see the interface is exactly the same as within Creo. You pick your X, and I'm going to tell it, well, I want 8 members here, and I want to rotate that 8 members around 360 degrees. And I'm going to complete that. Yeah, so there's a few things that happened here. So you'll see again, like with the mirror tool we used earlier, it will look to intersect your original geometry. So it extended that, but it also kept the chamfer that was at the bottom. So that's just because we've selected the chamfer. If you don't want the chamfer, you just select the cylindrical surface and the flat surface on the side, and then you won't have that. Okay, so that's the one way. Then the other way of doing this is to identify patterns. So we're going to go and we're going to use the recognize pattern. So let's select the boss first. I'm going to grab the hole as well, and I'm going to tell Creo to find the members. Okay, so it picked up the 4 members that was there. And I say, okay, so that's fine. That's what we needed. Then notice in the model tree, you'll have a pattern recognition feature in there now. So if I go and I change any of these any of this pattern members now, I have an option to apply it to all of them or just the one. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to use my modify analytic, and I'm going to say, well, I need to make this hole only 12. And then you'll notice that it didn't pick up the others. So once again, you have the option just to do one of the pattern members or all of them. So I'm going to tell Creo, well, in this case, I want to do all of them. So use that first pattern recognition, and you'll see that it will apply that change to all the pattern members. Okay, so just again, a nice way of controlling the references when you start modifying these this geometry. So this tool excellent for those late design changes, or if you receive a component from somebody else, you don't have to go work through the model tree, see what was referenced to this and that. Just go into flexible modeling and make those changes. Okay, so I think that's what I wanted to show in Creo. So I think I've taken the most or the most common things and talked a little bit about that. So I'm going to put my information slide back up. If you need to contact me, you can do that. Let me just get to the information slide. The contact information, that should be up now. So, and then I'm going to mute myself for about 2 or 3 minutes. If you have any questions, you can ask them now, and I can answer them now as well. We have a few minutes left. If I can't answer it, then I will get back to you with a decent answer. So feel free to ask some questions. Thank you. Okay, so we have a few questions. Let's just quickly get back into Creo to answer them. Let's go to one that might give us some help in answering them. Okay, so the first question was, is this included in the basic subscription? So that's flexible modeling. So yes, it is. Now, all the new subscription licenses will have flexible modeling. So Creo Essentials will have that. It's only the older versions. If you upgrade that, then if you're not upgrading to Essentials, then you might not have it. But I think it's fairly standard now. All the new things will have flexible modeling included. And then there was a question about anything major on the drawing part of this. So when you're using flexible modeling, you're moving surfaces and geometry. So if you already created drawings and a dimension is linked to that particular geometry or surface, that dimension will update. It's only new things that you added, like I did with the pin copy move. You'll have to go and add those dimensions. And then we have a question about what if something goes wrong? What if you do something and Creo can't resolve it or can't find a resolution? So let me quickly try that. Let's grab this boss over here and let's just move that to something that's not going to make sense at all. And let's just see what Creo is going to do with it. I'm just going to drag that down. So let's move it a little bit more. So that's basically in space now. So you can see I've got that that blob of geometry just lying in space. So I had it for a brief second. It's not showing anymore. But next to this, to the find icon, there's like a stop sign. Let me just see if I can get that. So there's the stop sign now. So if Creo is going into a loop, you can just hit that stop and it will basically take you back to the last solution it had for that particular geometry, or it will cancel the movement that you've applied. Okay, so that's when something goes wrong or Creo goes into a loop. Just stop it. Yeah, at the bottom in the message window. Okay, so there's a few more questions popping up. Let me just quickly have a look at those and then I'll answer them as well. Okay, so we just have one more question on the drawing side, where the user asked if you modify the part, will the drawing give you a hint that it was changed or not? So no, the drawing won't give you feedback that the part was updated or thing like that. But you can use the compare functionality. So the compare tool will let you compare certain versions of the model with others. So so you can take the latest one and compare that with the previous one, and that will show you the changes that was made. Okay. If you're working in Windchill, that's a lot easier. You'll notice those changes as well. So I just quickly want to grab another component on the rounds and chamfers. That's not really, was it this component? I had a scenario where the rounds would fail. Was it on this one? Let's see if we just remove a round. Okay, so if you just try to remove that one particular round, then it's not going to do it, because Creo doesn't know what to do with that, with the other sections. So when you have rounds and things failing, just select a little bit more of the surfaces. It's going to give you a hint or a notification of things that you need to select. So you can see there's a purple line running here, so I have to select that as well, and this one as well. So as soon as you select other geometry around that, then you might be able to remove those rounds. So what I normally do with rounds, if it's giving me issues, I'll pick one and I'll use the round selection, and let's see if that's gonna, so that will grab that. So I will do it in certain sections. So this is not really a complicated component, but I'll do one round at a time, pick the next one, identify that, and then remove that. So you can break those rounds up in sections as you need to go and remove those. Okay, so that's how I basically handle rounds that's giving me issues. Just break them up into smaller sections. Okay, so I don't have any new questions, so I'll mute myself again, give you guys a few minutes, get those questions in. I'll see if I can answer them. Okay, so there's no other questions. There's my contact information. Again, if you need to get all of me, just send me a mail. I'll respond to that and get your questions answered. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Thanks for your time, and talk to you soon. Bye.